There's a couple major gaming news stories we have to talk about today, starting with the conversation around Kirby and the Forgotten Land, the incredible sales start that game is off to, and a recent interview that went live that suggests that 3D may not be the future for Kirby games going forward. Then the big talking point for today's video has to do with a mega tech giant potentially working on plans right now to enter the gaming space in a big way, talking both home consoles, potentially portable, and we have to talk about what this means for the gaming landscape as a whole and the Nintendo Switch specifically. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, quick shout out to you guys as well. We just crossed 30,000 subscribers on the channel. I couldn't be more grateful and humbled, and thank you all for the continued support that do continue to come back and watch videos day in and day out. I truly appreciate you all out there, and it is an exciting journey we are on to continue to grow together. With all of that said, I do want to kick off the conversation today around Kirby and the Forgotten Land, as this is a fresh new direction for Kirby Games, and I personally am extremely enjoying my playthrough thus far. I'm not entirely sure how long the game will be, but everything that I've gone through in roughly the first 5 or 6 hours of the game has been super enjoyable, and I'm just loving this pace for Kirby Games. Now, there's one thing: the difficulty is not quite what I would want it to be, and I would enjoy a little bit more of a challenge in certain sections of the game. That said, the amount of fun you just have going through and traversing this game and trying to 100% the levels is actually so enjoyable that the difficulty aspect is not really bothering me. And this game is in the news today for a couple reasons, one of which is that the UK sales numbers have officially gone live, and this is the best-selling Kirby game when it comes to launch sales in the UK right now, period, in the franchise history. So that is obviously a big deal and a big win. And the other reason it is in the news is because there are some interviews going on at HAL Laboratory that actually slow down and ask developers about what this release really means for the future of the Kirby franchise. And there's some interesting information that I want to go over here with you all together, because it does sound like they are not necessarily locked into creating Kirby as a traditional 3D game going forward. So let's quickly read through this Eurogame article together so we're on the same page with exactly what has been said. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is an important milestone in the series' history, but 3D might not be the standard. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is an important milestone in series history, according to Shinya Kumizaki, General Director at HAL Laboratory. In an interview with the Washington Post, the developers and creators of Kirby discussed the future of the series. With Kirby and the Forgotten Land being the first 3D game in the series, the developers were asked if this would be a permanent evolution. Kumizaki said, "Although the game is certainly a fresh new look for the Kirby franchise, it doesn't necessarily mean this will be the standard going forward. Nintendo is on the same page as us, and this is something we talk about often. We hope to go beyond what is currently imaginable and challenge ourselves to create new, innovative Kirby games. This game was one of those challenges coming to fruition. We will continue to explore via trial and error and not just limit ourselves to 3D. With that said, one thing I can say is that Kirby and the Forgotten Land came with such big changes that it could be considered an important milestone in the long history of the series." So clearly, I think that HAL Laboratories really hit it out of the park with Kirby and the Forgotten Land, as the reviews are great, the sales are going great, and it's just kind of that refresh that we needed for the Kirby franchise, especially after what I would consider to be a miss of a game in Star Allies, as I just did not enjoy that one and really didn't get sucked into the gameplay very much at all. And while it is kind of a divisive subject to say, do we want to see Kirby continue in 3D? Do we want to see him go back to 2D? Do we want to see some kind of like unique perspective shifts type stuff go on where part of the game's in 2D, part of the game's in 3D? All of that is up for debate and speculation on what the future of the franchise will hold, but I do think that you can clearly say that what Forgotten Land has accomplished is just a straight up fun experience, and I would definitely love to see one day Kirby really get a full-on Mario Odyssey level treatment, where it's not so much of the fixed camera behind your character and the camera somewhat moving on its own. Granted, you do have some control over the camera with that right stick. I would actually prefer it to be a full-on double analog experience like what you play through with Mario Odyssey, and maybe have some more crazy platforming sections where you're not sure if you can make the jumps, and then also keep in that combat but maybe ramp up the difficulty just a little bit. Like, that sounds like a perfect Kirby game to me. And then if you sprinkle in some side missions that are specifically designed in 2D around like the classical Kirby experience, then I think that that's a win on all fronts, and it's definitely something that I would be here for in the future. So I'm still enjoying Forgotten Land. I'm not through it yet, so I will continue to play through that game to its completion and try to 100% all the levels. It is a ton of fun. I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below what you personally think about this new installment in the Kirby franchise, what you think about the sales start to it, and then also what you would personally like to see from the future of Kirby games going forward, and whether or not you've picked up Forgotten Land or if you plan to at all. So I do look forward to hearing from you on all things Kirby and the Forgotten Land in the comments down below. Now, the big story we're talking about today is a really interesting one to me, as it has to do with a big conversation around the future of the gaming landscape, as we are now in the year of 2022 and things are rapidly evolving, as we've talked about in numerous videos here on the channel. But we have to talk about a mega tech giant. I'm talking about one at the top of the charts, up there with really only companies you can compare like Google and Microsoft being as big as this one. And the company in question we are talking about today, potentially entering the gaming space, is Apple. And I do have to say that if Apple tries to take a stab at the gaming space and they do it right, it will be a very interesting thing to watch unfold, as we've seen them tinker around with different things like Apple Arcade, which is essentially a subscription service to allow you to play certain Apple games across all your iOS devices. And it's kind of crazy to think how many iOS devices are out there. When you think about the phone, you think about the tablet, you think about an Apple TV in a lot of households, how you can just simply sync up a Bluetooth controller or use touch controls and actually have a somewhat quality gaming experience. That said, I don't think the traction is there with Apple Arcade with any big notable hits that actually put that service on the map. At least it didn't for me, because when I watched the games that were shown off, it looks like there's some fun indie level experiences to be had, but nothing huge AAA level that would really entice me to subscribe to the service. That said, one notable thing that Apple did that Google did not with Stadia is Google tried to lean in entirely into cloud technology, and it seems like Stadia is all but forgotten, and Google is notorious for ramping up projects, throwing a ton of money into them, and then if it is not what they are into or what they don't see immediate buyback in, they then cancel and pull back on the project. It's all but confirmed that that's what's happening with Stadia. What's interesting about Apple's direction so far with gaming is that they do want it to run on their native hardware, and while they may have cloud options out there similar to how Microsoft does, if we are talking about full-scale games running on all Apple devices that are clearly capable of running even higher frame rates and graphical performance than something like the Nintendo Switch in most cases, as the chipsets that are in Apple phones are absurdly powerful. Granted, keep in mind, these phones sell for like $1,000 retail whenever they come out in most cases, especially the Pro models. But you do have to think about, with the electronic footprint that Apple has out here today in 2022, what it would look like if they truly tried to tackle the gaming space, as we did see Microsoft, that used to not be a competitor at all with Sony and Nintendo, and back in the day we had Sega, of course, and then in the 2000s we saw them launch the Xbox, and look at where the Xbox is at today. So this is an interesting one to me to kick off the conversation. I do want to hop over to our gaming leaks and rumors, the Reddit thread that kind of keeps up with a lot of different things on the internet. So let's quickly read through the information that has been spotted together and talk about what this could really mean for the Nintendo Switch and even Microsoft and Sony going forward if Apple does indeed present themselves in the gaming market around the corner. Rumor: Apple is currently discussing internally to re-enter the gaming console market. According to the rumor posted on Korean forum Klein, it is from Taiwan. It is rumored that they are conducting feasibility studies with external consulting. They are considering various methods, such as creating an official gaming console and making Apple TV a gaming console. They are seeking advice from famous game companies for their exclusive games, and Ubisoft and Capcom are very active. Now, if this rumor does indeed turn out to be true and Apple is really making the first steps in planning their gaming launch or their big stab at the gaming market, this will affect everything at a major level. As you know, there's no telling if company acquisitions would happen, but they definitely have the power to do so. Similar as we've seen Microsoft do the big card moves like buy Activision Blizzard, most notably, and most recently we've since seen Sony buy Bungie. Like, we're seeing a lot of consolidation happen really just in the last couple of years in the gaming space, and some of it could be from fears like a mega tech giant such as Apple, with that buying power, coming in and being a true up competitor. And they definitely have the money to throw around if they want to be a powerhouse in gaming to do it right. But that's a scary conversation when you think about them competing with Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo even. And the unique thing about Apple products, and if they do get into this gaming space, is it will almost immediately be a direct competition to the Nintendo Switch, in my opinion, because they have the mobile gaming part already essentially live and supported. And it's like, you can choose to play on the touchscreen. It's not so common for people to hook up a Bluetooth controller, but it's totally doable. You can even use PS5 and Series X controllers with iOS devices right now, whether that be your Apple TV, whether that be your smartphone. So this is a real threat in the way that they could definitely come in and present, like, yeah, play on your tablet, on your 12-inch screen, on your iPad Pro whenever you're out and about, or whatever iPad Air, you know, whatever you have, play on that when you're you're on the go, and then when you get home, this Apple TV just got an upgrade to be able to run 4K games. Maybe it's done via upscaling. Maybe we get an Apple TV Pro that is actually marketed as a true up gaming console, and then you can still have those experiences on the go mobily on iOS devices if you choose to leave your house. And if it's native and it is not something that is being streamed through the cloud, I think the experience is going to be a rather enjoyable one, and we will have to continue to watch and see if Apple actually makes partnerships with really big gaming companies and gets those big AAA games that will indeed entice people to game on their platforms. And one thing that Nintendo will always have, regardless of how many company acquisitions and mergers happen and how this plays out, as I think this would really be a bigger direct threat to something like Microsoft and their Game Pass model than it would be to Nintendo. And that is specifically because Nintendo has their library of first party IPs. They are essentially a Disney in the way that they own so much content that us fans can only get from a company like Nintendo, that I think they're relatively safe in their own space regardless. But it's still going to be a very interesting thing to watch unfold as we talk about the year of 2022 quickly progressing and what could be around the corner in terms of new gaming competitors in the upcoming years, and how this can really affect the gaming landscape as a whole. So it might be time for Nintendo, and I'm sure they are working on this, but to definitely get that more powerful version of the Switch that can run games at things like 4K docked, and then you can still take it on the go with you, as I still think that hybrid formula has a long life ahead of it before it transitions to something different. But regardless of what we see happen ultimately, I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video on all your personal thoughts and opinions on both the stories we talked about today. What's your overall thoughts on Kirby and the Forgotten Land so far and the series future? What do you want to see from it? And then definitely let me know what you think would happen if Apple really tries to take a full-on stab at the gaming landscape in truly a home console formula and a portable formula, and what you think that would really mean for the industry if they do secure big companies and AAA titles releasing on their platforms. And do you think they lean into some kind of subscription service that will be a direct competitor to Game Pass? Because I could definitely see that happening. And definitely let me know if you do think that they would at all be a threat or direct competitor to Nintendo if they do indeed choose to do this. So regardless of where you fall on all the issues we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Make sure you check out the weekend video if you haven't already, where we boot up the GameCube Classic Collection, that is the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition, together and walk through some nostalgia for the games that were released almost 20 years ago, which is still hard for me to believe. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.